We're on Tsadi Alphabet base about 9 lines up from the bottom, 91 B3, bottom of the first column. That's the middle of the first column. How Gavra Dizabna Liksuvasa de Ima Betova Sana. When a certain person sold his mother's tsuva for the benefit that if she would get divorced or whatever, uh this person would get it. We mentioned this, I don't know, a couple months ago as a possibility because there's also Gemara Makos about it. Um, so Rashi says that his mother was not married to his father at the time. So she was married to someone else. And it's not clear if this is talking about that the Suvas Banim Dichrin, or it's just her Suva. And I guess if he would inherit, but whatever, he seemed to sell something that even though it would be his mother's Suva, he sold it. We'll talk about what Tosos mentions after this. But the Amar La, and the son said, if my mother will come and complain about me selling her part of the ksuva, I'm not going to save it from you. So basically, he's saying, I'm selling it to you. Havasana, according to a bunch of Rishonim, it was for a small amount of money because the likelihood that it would ever be collectible was very small. And the guy said, if my mother protests this, then the sale is off. Shchiva ima v'lo yara. It ended up that she died and never protested it. So I mean, did he tell her did she know about it to protest? I don't know. But she died. But in a case where and Rashi points out that if the mother would protest, it was a non-refundable sale. The son was not going to refund the money, which according to some was a very small amount of money anyway. But it's like buying a lottery ticket. You spent $1 and maybe the guy was going to win $200. It wasn't the Powerball from a couple weeks ago, but and it must be in a case where the husband must have died. Well, because it does, if we assume that the husband's still alive and she died, then we have to be talking about the ksuvas banim different. But does ksuvas banim different apply to a case if she had kids from a previous marriage? I'm not sure. I don't know. Whatever. There's somehow it seems that she was going to be getting some money, whether it was that the husband died first and then she died, and now he's inheriting his mother, or it's ksuvas banim different. I'm not sure. But then the son himself who had sold the ksuva protested the sale because now he's going to be out that money that he sold the rights to. He doesn't really people unclear on the concept when you're selling the futures rights of the ksuva. So he protested it himself. So Sava Rami Barchama Lamemer Iba Makom Imekai. Rami Barchama wanted to say that he's in the place of his mother, and since his mother had the right to protest, he can protest the right also. Amalei Rava said, Nihida Chrayas di Dalo Kabbalah. It's true that he didn't accept upon himself responsibility in case she protested the deal. Achrayas di Milo Kabbalah. But didn't he accept upon himself responsibility against his own changing his mind? So if you want to back out, if he wanted to back out of the deal, he's going to have to refund the money. he only said in terms of if his mother protested the deal, he wasn't going to give a refund. So this is how Rashi explains it. Tosfos brings Rabbeinu Tam that says something else. The Tosfos wanted to say from here that there's a principle: a person isn't able to make a kinyan with something that hasn't come to the world yet. So, so Rabbeinu Tam wanted to say that there's a case that if a person whose father's alive says, "I'm going to sell you what I inherit from my father," well, since the father's still alive and it hasn't come in Yerusha yet, the sale doesn't take place. So Rabbeinu Tam says that's true if it was just a general thing. But if he said, when I inherit this particular field from my father, it is sold to you, I'm selling it to you now, for in the future when it becomes mine, this particular field, Rabbeinu Tam says that does work. So Tosfos says, when the Gemara here says that the son sold it b'tovas hana, that it didn't mean a little price. It meant that if she dies, I don't understand this phrase. Or what if the husband dies first? Maybe the son will also die before the mother does, and then this lokeach is never gonna. This guy who he sold it to is never gonna get anything, because we have to wait till the mother to die and then go to the son, and then it becomes the son to sell. So it has to be a case where the sale has potential of taking effect. But then there's a different opinion that would have no bearing on that case, and that was in this case, he sold the field that the father had designated to pay the ksuva out of. Okay, whatever. So Tosos mentions this case, and b'tovas hana, it does not mean, according to him, a little bit of money, which Rashi says that it's a very little. But according to Rashi, though, the reason it's sold for a very little bit of money is because the probability that the guy would ever make it is very small. So it's a futures contract that's so unlikely. Like you say, I'll buy Nvidia if Nvidia is stock is $100. Nvidia is so expensive right now. The chance of it being $100 is very small. I mean, someone could put a small of a contract on it. It probably wouldn't cost very much, but it's something that's so unlikely to happen. So it costs a very little amount. According to Rashi, it clearly was a second marriage because it's his mother, but she's married to someone who's not his father. So they must have either been divorced or she was widowed and she was remarried. That's clear according to Tosfos. I mean, according to Rashi, it's a separate marriage. Amar Rabbi Barchama, back in the Gemara, last few words on this Amud. Ruvain, Rabbi Barchama said, Ruvain shemachar sodol Shimon shelo b'achrayas. If Ruvain sold a field to Shimon without achrayas, so achrayas is, you know, I might have loans against me. If my creditors come and take the land from you, you're going to be out of money. Meaning, I'm not gonna reimburse you in case you lose the field to my creditors. So I mean, if Shimon wanted to buy the field from Reuben for that, I guess he'd be able to buy it at a discount because he's taking a big risk, right? So Reuven sold the field to Shimon without any guarantees that if it gets seized by his creditors, he's not going to make it whole again. But also Shimon Reuven b'achrayas, and then Shimon sold the field back to Reuven with achrayas, with the guarantee that if it gets seized, I'll pay you back. We turn to Tzadi Beis Amid Beis. Va'asabachov de Ruvain, the Qatar Flamine, and then Ruvain's own Balchov. So Ruvain, who owned the field, sold the field, and bought it back. Ruvain's own creditor took it. So Ruvain says, Shimon, you sold me the field with the guarantee that if a creditor takes it away, you're gonna pay me back for it. So pay me back for it, even though it's his own creditor. Dina hu da azal Shimon mitzapile. The halacha is that Shimon does have to either pay Reuven the value of the field, or try to pay off the guy who collected it, so that Reuven gets the field back. Amarle Rava. I mean, it's pretty crazy that Reuven didn't guarantee to Shimon, and Shimon sold it back to him, and then Reuven's own creditor took it from Reuven, and then Shimon has to pay for Reuven's debt. It is a bit crazy. Amalei Rava, but Rava said to Rami Rachamo, Nihid achraz da'ama kabbalah, achraz nafshemi kabbalah. It's true that Shimon was offering Reuven this insurance in case it gets seized by creditors. But he meant from his creditor, from Shimon's creditors. Why should he pay Reuven if Reuven's own creditors would seize it? So in this case, Rava Paskin that Shimon doesn't have to pay for Reuven in this case because it's Reuven's own creditors. Umoda Rava, but Rava agrees. But Reuven share Sodom Yaakov. If Reuven inherited a field from his father Yaakov, and he sold it to Shimon without this insurance that if it gets taken, he'll pay it back. And then Shimon went and sold it back to Reuven with achrayas, the Yaakov, and then the father's creditor seized it from Reuven. In that case, Shimon will have to pay back to Reuven, or to pay the creditor, so Reuven gets to keep the field. My time about Chov Yaakov Chov da Amadami, because Yaakov's creditor, Reuven's father's creditor, is not like Reuven's own creditor. The same way that Shimon gave Reuven insurance if it gets seized by a creditor, obviously it doesn't mean Reuven's own creditor. Well, this guy isn't Reuven's own creditor, so therefore Shimon will have to pay him for it. Amir Rami Barchama, another sack of Rami Barchama, Reuven Shemachar Settle Shimon Bachrayas. And these halachos you'll see are about selling something with insurance, and then certain things happen. Do you have to pay back, or do you not have to pay back for the people who lost their field? Reuven Shemachar Settle Shimon Bachrayas. Reuven sold the field to Shimon with this insurance that if it gets taken by a creditor, he'll make him whole. Either he'll pay the creditor to get the field back, or give him money for the field. But he didn't pay the whole. Let's say he was selling the field for $1,000. He didn't have $1,000, so he paid $500, and the other $500 they made a new loan, basically what we would call buying on credit in halacha. We call it zakala b'milva. So the field is yours now, but you owe me a new debt of $500 to replace the remaining $500 you owe for the field. So nowadays, whether it's a credit card or whether it's a loan, we say you own the field right away, but you're paying it on credit, right? But in the way it works here is you have to pay for the whole field for it to be yours. But because he didn't have the whole money, he accepted a different loan. So the field is considered paid off in exchange for Shimon accepted on himself a new debt equal to what he couldn't afford to pay off in the original loan. So halachically, the debt for the field was paid off, but the amount that he didn't pay for the field is an independent loan. And this is something that we do, or some people, Rav Aaron did and Rav Moshe does, for selling chametz. If they estimate the chametz, let's say to be $500,000, we don't ask the goy to pay $500,000. we have him give us a down payment, and then we say if you accept, let's say he owes $490,000, whatever, after the down payment left, we say we're willing to forgive this remaining, and this is Erev Pesach, before Pesach, we say this. It's not at the end of the. We say we're willing to forgive the $499,900 that you owe if you accept the new loan with the entire amount, so that the transaction of the chametz is considered completely paid off. But he still owes us a different loan. That's the way it works, and that's the way we're talking about here. Umeis Reuven, but then Reuven died. Va'asabachov de Reuven katar flemi Shimon, and then Reuven's creditor takes the field away from Shimon. Upaisi bezuze, and Shimon convinced him not to take it because he paid him money. And what was the money that he paid? The money that he owed with this other loan to make Reuven whole. So Rashi says that for the examples that I gave, for the $500 that he owed to Reuven, he was able to make Reuven's creditor go away. So now the amount that he owed Reuven, he spent to keep his own field. What's the halacha? So Rami Bar Chama says, Dina hu da'ami le b'nei Reuven. The halacha is that b'nei Reuven can say to Shimon, Anan mitatle shavak avuch kabach. For us, you left, our father left movable property by you, meaning we had a debt. You had a debt that you owed us, the $500 that you never finished paying off from the loan. I mean, from the buying the field. So there was a new loan that you owed us money. But movable property of Yisomim are not indebted for a creditor. So the amount that you owed our father was money, and he could but I mean this creditor is seizing it for a different loan, but our movable properties aren't indebted. So you should have paid us. So you should have paid us for the money that you owed our father, and it wasn't indebted to pay. It wasn't indebted to be pay off for a creditor of our father's who was coming to take this field away from you. So therefore, according to Rami Bar Chama, the kids are saying you still have to pay us back our money for the field, the money that you owed our father. You would have to pay that back to us. So basically, it sounds like they're saying because their father sold it to him with a guarantee, they're saying that we wouldn't have had you still owe us money, and um I guess that maybe because Ruvain died, the fact that the property isn't seizable anymore. I don't know. I there's something that I'm not understanding here, so I'm sorry that I'm not teaching it properly. Amarava, but Rava didn't like this psak. Ipikech idach, if the other one, meaning Shimon, is very sharp, magbile nihailu ara. He should pay the Yisomim, Reuven's Yisomim back not with cash but with land. The Hadar Gavi Leminahu, and then take the land back from them because of the $500 that he paid for to keep his field. Kudur of Nachman, according to Tax of Nachman, the Amar of Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua, because Rav Nachman said in the name of Rabbi Baravua, Yisomim shagol b'karka b'chavas aviyim, if orphans received karka as for a payment of a loan that their father had lent out, b'achov chozer v'govos amehem, a creditor is allowed to collect the land from them. They can't collect the metaltalin, but they could collect real estate. Now, I don't understand this, and it's not the Gemara is not difficult. It's my understanding is deficient, because we mentioned about 3 weeks ago or before Hanukkah that the halacha is that if someone lent money, they could demand money back, not land. So in this case, Reuven had lent money. So why is Rava saying that if Shimon is sharp, he can pay them back with land with land? But we said a few blot ago that if you lend money, you have to pay back money. Whereas a Kesuvos Isha, a Kesuva could be paid with property. Or later we know in our Kesuvos it says even the shirt off the back, even with movables. Or a regular case of Nizikin, if someone injured someone else, you don't have to pay with cash. You could pay with property. But in the case of a loan, it's supposed to be paid back with money. You lent money, so you have to pay back money. So why is the Rabbi is this? I don't understand this, but it's. Is this like a second loan and the other one was just a single loan? So you're saying because he didn't actually loan him the money, he doesn't have to pay back money? Maybe. Okay. Yashka. But in general, though, it would have the status of a loan. But you're right. He didn't actually give him money to return, but it does have the status of regular loan. Maybe. Rabba says, Reuven shmachar kol sados of l'Shimon. If Reuven sold all of his fields to Shimon, v'chazer Shimon u'machar soda achas Levi, and Shimon then sells one of the fields to Levi, v'asabal chov to Reuven, and then a creditor of the first guy who has a document with a mortgage with a lien against a property, Ratza Mizegova, Ratza Mizegova. He could either collect from Shimon or from Levi. So even though the field could have transferred hands more than one time, he could collect from the first buyer or even the second buyer. Below Amran Elo Dezavna Beininus. And this is only true if Levi bought medium quality land. Because medium quality is what's collectible for loans. Avozavna Idias Viziburis, but if the Levi only bought high quality land or the lowest quality land, then the borrower can't collect for it because Matzi Amrle Lahaki Tarchi Zvini Arad Lachazilach. Levi could say, I knew that there was a risk in buying this guy's land because I was pretty sure he had debts. So I bought stuff that's not collectible for a regular debt. Baininus, medium quality land, is collectible for debts. I bought everything but medium quality because I went through that effort to make sure that I wouldn't lose this to a creditor. Ubaininus, Nami lo Amran Eldol Shavik Baininus the Chavasa. And when did we say, and so when can we collect from the third guy, from Levi, when Levi bought Baininus, medium quality land? That's only if Levi had medium quality land and Shimon, who he bought it from, didn't have any similar medium quality land. Aval, as we turn to Tzadi Beis Beis, Aval Shavak Baininus the Chavase, Matzi Amar Lehinafti Lachmakam Legabos, Hemana. But if Levi bought Baininus, but some of the Reuven's original Baininus land still stayed with Shimon, so then Levi is safe from being collected also, because Matzi Amar Lehinafti Lachamakom Legabos Hemana. Because Levi could say, I left you, creditor of Reuven, land that you could collect from Shimon, so you can't collect from me. Abai said, Reuven Shemachar Sodal Shimon Bachrayos. If Reuven sold a field to Shimon with a guarantee in case it gets seized by his creditor, he would make him whole. But also about Chov de Ruve, and then Ruvain's creditor tried to take it away from Shimon for the loan that he had. Dina who the halacha is the Azal Ruvain Mitzapile. Ruvain has to go, and Ruvain can go and deal directly with the creditor. So Rashi says if Ruvain with the predator, excuse me, not the predator, the creditor has some type of deal that they can make, um, meaning it seems that they have a bunch of different debts. So he says, he's taking debt number, B23. He says, look, I'll pay you right now for debt B62, but please leave B24 away. Let just don't deal with it. Or Rashi says, and this is a question why Rashi says it, or if Ruvain makes the creditor say, make a shavua that I didn't pay you back. So that's a pretty strong tactic to prevent the collection. But Rashi says he's able to say those things. You're not able to, the creditor isn't allowed to say that you are not my opposing party in this case. Baldvarim literally means master of words, but a Baldvarim is we have a certain dispute. So you're not my disputant in this case. So even though Ruvain did owe money to this creditor and clearly never paid it back, or potentially didn't pay it back, if he was willing to make him take a shvuah, maybe he thinks he did pay it back. So they were they were disputants with each other, right? If one guy's claiming you owe me money, there's a dispute. But he says, no, I didn't come to deal with you. I only wanted to take the field away from the third party. I don't want to deal with you. Is he able to say that? No. The creditor is not able to tell Reuven, you're not my disputant in this case. I'm only trying to get the land from that guy, not from you. It doesn't make so much sense for him to say that, but so he doesn't have a right to say that. Reuven can get involved. Mishum da Amarle, because Reuven says to Mafaktamine alai hadar. Because if you take something from Shimon, I have to pay it back anyway. So it's as if you're dealing with me right now anyway. The Ika da Amri, afilu shaloloba nami. And some says even if Ruvain sold the field to Shimon not with any insurance, that it could be seized. And then Ruvain's creditor was trying to seize it. Ruvain can still get involved and try to convince the guy, make a deal with him not to take this field. The Amarle, even though Ruvain can't say that you're whatever happens to the field I have to deal with, so we're disputants one with another. Lonicha the Amarle, Ruvain can say Lonicha de Havila Shimon Teromasalai. I don't want Shimon to have to be upset at me over this happening, so therefore it's my business. So I guess you can make a musar shmooze from here that even though Reuven sold the field without insurance, the fact that Shimon would be upset at him that because of debts that he had and creditors that he had, it ended up getting taken away. Shimon does have a right to be upset. And so the Mutzah Shmuz is, if a guy has a right to be upset with me, I want to make it okay so that he's not going to be upset at me. Now, the one thing that I don't understand for all these cases that we've been talking about is that he clearly owed the money. Reuven owed the money. So it's not like Reuven was Mr. Clean over here. The only reason the creditor is coming is he has a star that says Reuven owes me money. He has an IOU from Reuven that he's saying Reuven never paid.
So from the beginning,
right? That's what I'm saying. So how come Shimon is getting a better deal than the original creditor? If you borrow money from the creditor, you have to pay him. How come you don't know him making sure? Why are you making me be mad at you for not paying the loan, and you don't want him to be mad at you about the field? I'm Rabbi. Rabbi said another case. It's a very short Amud because look how big this Tosfos is. There's only 2 Tosfos on the page, and one of them is massive. And that's why there's only 9 lines of Gemara on here. 10 lines. Rabbi says, Reuben shemachar soda l'Shimon shelo b'achrayos. If Reuben sold the field to Shimon without any insurance that it gets taken by a creditor, he's not going to make him whole. B'yatzo alav asikin, and then some people b'yatzo alav asikin, and then people were claiming that the field wasn't yours to give. I mean to sell. We're saying that it was my land, so it wasn't even yours to sell. Before Shimon made a kinyan yachal achzerbo, he can back out of it. But once he made a chazaka, eno yachal achzerbo, he's not allowed to retract from the sale, which it's a risky sale now because there's people claiming that it's their land, so then it was never Ruvain's to sell. And if Ruvain sold the field without any insurance and it wasn't really his to sell, Shimon is just going to be out of luck. So it seems that according to Rashi, even if he didn't pay yet, but if he made the chazaka in anticipation of, yeah, I like the field, everything's good in here, I'm going to pay the money for it, it seems that the chazaka came before paying the money. Or Rashi might be saying two things here. It might be after pay money, but then he says v'yesh. Rashi says there are some people who make a chazaka immediately and then they pay the money afterwards. But once the chazaka took place, there's an obligation to pay the money, even if it hasn't been paid yet. And I guess at that point it would be too late to back out, even though he didn't pay the money yet, because the main part of the kinyan was the chazaka. Once he made a chazaka on the field, he can't back out of the sale. Mishum da amar lei, because Reuben can say chayta diktiri sevart v'kabil. You saw and you accepted a bag of nuts. You knew that it was risky, and in this case, the risk was too big, and you lost your investment here. A chaysa is a small bag, and a kitri full of knots. I don't know how you had different knots of rope in the bag. I don't know, or the bag itself became knotted. I don't know exactly. But the fact that you were willing to engage in this deal that was a little bit risky, sometimes you took a risk and you lost. And what time is it considered chazaka? Miki diyayish ametre, when he walks along the boundaries of the field. That's one of the forms of kinyan. Now Tosos asks on that because the third Tosfos says, what does the Gemara say? We know it's an explicit mishna in Bava Basra that there's a whole list of things that you could do to make a kinyan. You could lock it. Let's say if it had a gate, you could lock it. You could put a fence around it, or you could make an opening in the fence around it. There are many types of chazaka. So what's the Gemara asking here? What's a chazaka? We know it. There's an explicit mishna what a chazaka is. So Toso says, if you already gave the money, when is it considered to give a chazaka? And then the Gemara says, when you walk around the boundary, meaning even though walking around the boundary is a lesser form of chazaka, but once there's money and just walking around, it's a full kinyan. And the Rivam answers that in a case where Reuven sold the field to Shimon and they made a kinyan on it, whether it's let's say a handshake, but he didn't make a chazaka on the land. So meaning once he makes a chazaka, that would show that he wasn't going to go back on it. So as long as he didn't make any chazaka on the land, shows that there wasn't a full agreement. Lahavdil. No, never mind. I shouldn't say that. that because according to the Rivam, the halacha recognizes that while the you're still talking details, the talks haven't completed yet. So in this case, we're talking about a case where they've been talking about the field. They made an agreement, I guess maybe we would call agreement in principle. The reason I'm not so sure is because in there's a Kenyan called Situmta, and Situmta is well, I think there's two types of Situmta, but we're saying that if in that field they shake hands when they agree, that's the Kenyan. So we can't necessarily say that they made a Kenyan or I said Kenyan I said a handshake. But maybe a better thing would be a chalipin, giving over the handkerchief or the pen. But if that's a form of Kenyan, though, oh, because they're showing that they're agreeing on the deal, but property can't be transferred that way, can it? It can because we see in say for Rus that with taking off the shoe, which was chalipin, they were kona the land. I have to look into the deals. It's been a while. I have to look into that. So
Years,
what?
for years in the diamond business,
Yeah, they would.
you you can't shake hands over the phone, but once you told somebody, Mazal,
Right, yeah. So saying Mazel Tov was also a form of this Kenyan.
it means it was done,
Right.
and um,
And
there
in
were
court, it's
some
been
people,
enforced, right?
pardon me?
And it's enforceable in court, right?
Well, there were at a diamond trading club, yes, it would have been, people, and but things have changed on that now. But for years, some people would insist that, no, and the only way of getting out of it was because um, uh, let's say our sale fell through on our end. We wouldn't want to deal with them anymore if they
Right.
enforced that.
Uh,
But there were some people that, let's say, we didn't deal too often with, that might say, no, no, you told me Mazel, and you have to stick with it.
right. Right. So that's a form of the situmta. In the business, they do doing a certain thing
Okay.
shows yeah that then it has halachic significance. So in this case, they were in the active discussion about the field, and I guess they've agreed in principle that he was gonna that Shimon was gonna buy the field from Ruvain, but then questions on the ownership, and nowadays with title insurance, this hopefully wouldn't happen, but someone else is coming and saying, wait, that's my field, not Ruvain's field, before the Chazaka. So according to the Rivam, um, if the knowledge of these other people claiming that the field was really there was for the chazaka, and the guy still didn't make chazaka, in that case, then he can't back out because he knew the risks involved and he did chazaka anyway. So then it would be too late for him to back out. And then right before the Mishnah, another line and a half. And some say that this halacha applies even if Reuven sold the field with an insurance that if it gets seized, he'll make him whole. Still, Shimon won't be able to retract from the sale when he made a chazaka. Why? The Amarle, Reuven can tell Shimon, Achvi terpach, v'shalim lach. Show me the document that Basin signed that allows the field to be seized, and then I will pay you back. But if if it hasn't really been repossessed from you, I'm not going to pay because just because there's people claiming that it's theirs doesn't mean that at the end of the day they're going to win in Basin and it's going to be declared theirs. You may not lose this field. So if Basin decided that yeah you're losing the field, now I'm going to pay you. But if Beis Din hasn't decided yet, I'm not paying you for it because there's no guarantee that you're actually going to lose the field. Okay, now the next Mishnah, Sadi Gimel Amud Aleph. I found on this Mishnah an article by Yisrael Aumann, also known as Robert Aumann, the winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics for game theory, for about this Mishnah. So let's read the Mishnah. And Misha Yanase Shalosh Nashim. So now, thank God, we're kind of done with, I think, these cases about selling lands with insurance, not with insurance. Now we're dealing a case which is what it is. It's case of bankruptcy. The estate doesn't have enough money to pay its debts, and there's several ksuvas. How do we pay it off? Misha Nasim Shalosh Nashim. If someone was married to three wives, Umay and he died. Ksuvasa Shal Zumana. If one wife had a 100 zuzmana, Vishal Zumasayim, and the other wife had a 200 zuzmana, Vishal Zu Shlosh Meos, and the third wife had a 300 zuz ksuva, ve'ain sham elamana, but the whole estate only has 100 zuz. Cholka b'shava. They each divide equally, so each one gets 33 and a third dollars. So no one gets full amount. So Rashi points out the three ksuvas had to be sealed on the same day because if they had different dates, the earliest one would be able to seize stuff first off the top. So it must be that they're all dated the same day. They're not able to do that. So they're all considered they come at the same time. Oh, oh. Because they're all dated the same day, no one is first to be collected. If one was dated earlier, that one would have first dibs on collecting. Hayusham Masayim, the same case that there's three women. And with the same, one has a $100 ksuba, one has a $200 ksuba, one has a $300 ksuba. But now Hayusham Masayim, if the estate had 200 zuz, so Shalmana Notelas Chamishim, the first woman who has the $100 ksuba, she gets 50. And then the two women with the bigger ksuva with 200 and 300 zuz, each of them get 75. Three golden pieces here, each gold piece is worth 25 zuz. So in this case, one gets 50, two get 75 each. So 75 plus 75 plus 50 is 200. So it ends up that the first woman ends up getting half of her ksuva paid, because she got 50 out of her 100. The other two got less than 50% of their ksuva paid. Because one got 75 out of 200. So it's what, 3/8? And the other one got 75 out of 300. A lesser percentage. What if the estate had 300 and it's the same three ksuvas, 100, 200, 300? Shalmana notos chamishim. Again, the woman who had a $100 ksuba will get 50. Shalmasayim mana, the one who had a 200 zuz ksuba gets one mana, which is 100 zuz. So the first woman gets half of her ksuba. The second one gets half of her ksuba. And the one who had 300 gets 6 golden pieces. So 6 times 25 is 150. So it ends up that each one gets 50% of their ksuva. The one with 100 got 50. The one with 200 got 100. And the one with the 300 got 150. 150 and 100 plus 50 is 300. So that exhausts the amount of the estate. And also 3 people who put money together into a pocket, or meaning to a fund. So I guess they were investing together. And then Pichsu Hisiru, if they ended up losing money, or if there were profits, if there was more money than they started out with, which was the goal, Tachin Chokin, this is the way that it would be distributed. That if they're not equal partners, So this is the amount they would split the loss or share the profits.
Where did it come up with 50?
For the second and third cases. Right. So Rashi says in the first case where there's only 100 in the whole estate, Rashi says they all have an equal, each one has at least that lien against the estate. Each of the women have 100 so the fact that the whole estate only has 100, we just say, okay, we split it equally. Each one gets 33, 33, 30, 33 and a third, 33 and a third, 33 and a third. But when there's 200 zuz in the estate, so then the first woman only has a claim against 100 of the zuz. And then the other two women have have claims against the whole 200 in the account. I mean in the estate, but there's clearly not enough to go around. So 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 we didn't see the Gemara yet, but let's start talking about, well, no, we'll leave it here. But God willing, next week we'll see the Gemara, and then so we'll see what the Gemara says, and we'll explain what Professor Alman says, and he had discussed part of the sugya with his son Shlomo, who was killed in Lebanon in 1982, and he mentioned obviously with other of his sons, he gives credit for different ideas in there, but the article was written in the mid 80s, and his son had been killed in late 1982, so he dedicated that article to his son. But God willing, we'll discuss the Gemara and then what he talks about it next week.